And good afternoon from Philadelphia. Frank here with a Sunday edition of UFO News Network Sunday. We got a fascinating show. There's been some news in the last week or so, and there's some more events coming up next weekend, and we want to get right down to it. We got a couple fabulous guests today. First off, Steve Bassett, head of the Paradigm Research Group, and Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on, and let's get right to it, shall we?
All right, Frank. Great to be with you, Frank.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And last week, some fascinating news hit the air. Michio Kaku appearing at a Barcelona UFO conference, sat down with Jaime Maussan, often controversial in this field, but Maussan got the goods. On the record, he's got Kaku himself making the following statement, and let's listen to it now, so you can hear the string theorist himself, in his own words, explain where he thinks the UFO situation is now. It's quite compelling. So let's give a quick listen.
Now the tide is turned, because traditionally scientists would giggle and laugh talking about flying saucers and UFOs. The burden of proof was on the believers. Prove it. Give me the evidence. Show me. Now the burden of proof has shifted to the government and the military. Now they have to prove that these sightings are not from outer space and another civilization. Several things have happened. First, we have videotapes. Videotapes taken by United States Navy pilots that are testable. We can now see and calculate how fast they move, how fast they can zigzag, what is the altitude. We know the parameters of these objects now. We didn't have that before. And so this means that the burden of proof has shifted. Now the military, the government has to prove that they are not from another planet. Now, they still...
And that is pretty compelling stuff. Kaku is now saying that the government, the military, has to prove that they're not from another planet. And Steve Bassett, I know one of the recent times that you were on, you told me that you were preparing a petition for scientists to sign off on. This has got to be a little bit more ammo for you going forward with that. Hello? Hello, Michael.
Yeah, I'm still here. I don't hear Stephen. And by the way, on my end, I couldn't hear Michio's statement either. It was just blank for that.
You won't be able to hear that, unfortunately, the way the sound is set up. But it seems like Steve might be having some issues. You're still coming in loud and clear, Michael. So that might be on Steve's end. I'm not 100% sure. But you saw this over the course of the week, and you have to be as thrilled as I am that a scientist who's a serious guy developed string field theory. He's not a scientific lightweight who just writes books and, he has a science degree. No, he's the real deal in terms of science. You had to be thrilled to death that Kaku came out with this statement.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is talk about Steve's paradigm shift. This is exactly what's happening right here in front of our very eyes. Just before the major events that are coming up this next weekend at Area 51, Michio Kaku comes out and actually makes that bold statement that, hey, this is a conclusion that needs to be refuted by the government rather than the other way around. That's fantastic.
I have to admit, I never would have thought of doing it. And Chant, who's not with us today due to some issues surrounding her home, but she was able to talk to a few people. We got this feedback from Michael Paul Masters, the anthropologist who's written a book recently about UFOs. I haven't read the Kaku thing beyond what you sent me above, but I love that he said the burden of proof is shifted. That gets us back off our back foot playing defense all the time. and puts the onus on them a bit more. I did see an interview with him recently, though, in which he said that time travel should be possible for any advanced civilization, which was awesome, because some tool at the MUFON conference in July kept trying to troll me by saying that time travel will never be possible because Michio Kaku says it's impossible. I guess he and the other TT haters are going to have to find a new messiah to prop up that falsehood. Well, there you go. Steve, Michael, of course, with the time travel. Kaku's, as far as I know, never said that time travel was impossible. In fact, I first became aware of him when he published the book Hyperspace, and that was a good 20 years ago now, and he was talking about all those subjects as being quite possible. So there's that. It's very interesting that somebody comes up with the point, which should give you an idea of how regarded Kaku is. If Kaku says it's not possible, even though the guy was wrong about this, then it's not possible. So the guy is well respected by people who are familiar with him, and I think that's a good thing there, Michael.
Yeah, no, it's just like an amazing opportunity now that we're finally getting the science on our side. Obviously, we've had testimony. We've had even the government, by the way of the Navy and the Air Force, pilots coming out and talking about it. And of course, mainstream media now is jumping on board, but it's a guy at the stature of Michio Kaku coming out and making these kinds of statements, almost challenging the government debunkers even to come forth, is a major paradigm shift. And makes a big step forward, I think, to Stephen's whole idea of open government hearings. I mean, we need to have congressional hearings that mean something. Not that Stephen's efforts have been for naught over the decades, because he has gotten us to that point where I think it's gonna happen at this time.
And another statement from Earl Gray, who's an investigator for MUFON out in California. Michio Kaku is one of our most celebrated theoretical physicists and popularizers of science, stepping comfortably into the shoes of Carl Sagan. When Michio states that UFOs deserve to be studied seriously and that there's something to the phenomenon, people should stop and take note. Kaku states the explanation usually invoked for UFO sightings, meteors, weather balloons, even the planet Venus, can't explain these live-action, high-precision shots. Maybe they are evidence of an advanced outer space civilization. Going back to Earl's quote, this is a significant nod by a highly respected scientist to the extraterrestrial hypothesis as the origin of strange anomalous aerial sightings. If Carl Sagan has said this, it wouldn't be any different. Quite a boon for the modern ufology field. And Kaku does get into some details about the radar evidence, and particularly the video evidence that was captured from those two incidents, the Nimitz case, and then later on, more recently, the Roosevelt case. Shane Hurd jumping in here. I agree with Dr. Kaku. The burden of proof is shifted. However, I am hesitant to say they will do it. If it gets too problematic for them, I could see them pulling the plug at any time. I am hopeful that disclosure continues to the degree scientists, universities, politicians, and other societal leaders will take an active interest and move the ball forward. This is a global issue, and we need everyone to engage. So what do you think about that there, Michael?
Oh, I think it's just, and I really respect Earl and his opinion as well, but this is almost like a gauntlet being thrown down by Dr. Kaku. The whole idea that a guy in his stature would step up to the plate at this point in history and then kind of lead the charge into the idea that everything is now flipped. I mean, there are so many people that have had sighting reports. One of my clients, National UFO Reporting Center, and Peter Davenport, he says that his sighting reports are going through the roof right now.
Really?
So
okay.
It's almost, yeah. He says that for some reason, the quality and quantity of the reports of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, and alien entities, he says, is just astronomical at this point. So I think what they're finding is that they're needing to, or at least Dr. Kaku is telling the government, they need to get ahead of this if they're going to stay in touch with what's really happening out there. So that is a fascinating time for all of us, ufologists, like yourself, Frank, to be involved here now and hopefully be able to bring the rest of the public along with us on this new paradigm shift.
Okay, and Steve Bassett, do we have a better connection now?
It seems to be better, Frank. Let me comment on Kaku. This is significant on a number of levels, but let me unpack it a little bit for you. Michio made these statements twice. One was in an interview to Jaime Maussan on Maussan's show in Mexico, which goes out to a lot of people. And the other was at the Ufology World Conference in Barcelona this last weekend. So this is not just a one-off. He did it twice. Secondly, when you look at his statement, it's remarkable. What he's saying, in so many words, is that we're past the point where we need to convince the governments that the ET reality, the ET phenomena is real. And we're now where the government needs to prove to us it's not real. Now, that's interesting because as Michio Kaku knows, and all of his colleagues know, you cannot prove a negative. So what he's literally done is saying, well, the government now needs to prove a negative, which is not cool. It's illogical. So what the hell is going on here? Well, here's what's going on. Michio Kaku, like so many others, and I'll include Carl Sagan in this, I'll include Dyson in this, and others, possibly even Stephen Hawking, they have known for a very long time there's an extraterrestrial presence. And they have chosen to go along with the truth embargo for patriotic reasons, for personal pragmatic reasons, whatever, and service it and not push the boundaries. Don't push the line. It'll all take care of it. It's the government's job. They'll do it when they feel it's right. And so what's happening is that as we get closer to disclosure, the pressure is building and building. As these people sense that the end of this race, the finish line is approaching, they're having to consider their entire statements about this issue going back decades and realizing they're about to be shown to be on the wrong side of this issue, which is not a good look for a scientist. And so you're going to see a lot of people trying to position themselves to say some things that will mitigate the public relations problem they're going to face. And Kaku has done that here, but he had a problem. What he should have said is that we're long past the point where we need to prove that this phenomena is real and extraterrestrial, and we are at the point when the government needs to acknowledge that it is extraterrestrial. That, of course, would be disclosure, but he can't say that. So he split it down the middle. He basically said, I can't do that, but let me just say it's time for the government to prove they're not real, even though I know every scientist that knows me is going to say, Michio, what are you doing? You're asking the government to prove a negative. It can't be done. But nevertheless, he thought that was the wise choice. And so that gives you a sense of what's happening. And you're going to see more of this. There's an awful lot of people out there that are going to have egg on their face, because after disclosure, everyone is going to figure out pretty quickly. They always knew. They knew 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but they didn't feel that we had a right to know, and they felt it was more important for them to serve the government's truth embargo and maybe protect their careers than to be truth tellers. And I applaud Michio for making this move. I hope others will do the same. I know he can't go all the way, but he has always been on our side by and large, and he has been a good guy.
Yeah, he has been. He was out helping to promote Leslie Kean's book right after that was released. I thought that was rather surprising. And I have heard, and I don't know if you've heard or not, but privately, if you approach Dr. Michio Kaku and ask him about UFOs, he'll say, rather off the record, of course, he'll say rather unambiguously that, yeah, we've been visited for a long time. That at least privately he accepts. And I got this from a source that I like quite a bit. and it's a direct conversation that this individual imparted to me. This is a guy who's not
Sorry,
a
Frank,
UFO.
most of this I'm not hearing, unfortunately.
Can you hear me, Steve?
The connection's going bad again. There's an awful lot of people.
Yeah,
on the
yeah. You're breaking up.
Eastern and Pacific.
Yeah,
The system is overloaded.
Okay. Well, Let me finish up with my little Kaku anecdote. I have spoken to an individual who's who's a UFO buff, but he's not really a UFO researcher per se. He's known in his field. Let's put it this way: he's got his own Wikipedia page, so he's a serious guy in his field, which is not UFOs. But he imparted to me an anecdote where he saw Kaku, approached him, and was actually asked Kaku about UFOs, and Kaku said rather unambiguously, privately off the record, of course, but he said rather unambiguously is that, yeah, we've been visited for a long time. So let me, Michael, let me get some of your thoughts here while I try to switch our connection with Steve, if you don't mind doing that for me.
Oh yeah, no problem. By the way, this is what happens when you have Steve Bassett on a program. He's very popular, and there's a whole lot of people out there that are tuning in to this new news about Dr. Kaku coming forth and making his bold statements that the government needs now to step forward and prove that these things are not extraterrestrial. So it's quite a shift in the paradigm, as Steve would mention it, and a big chink in that truth embargo. The whole idea that mainstream science now is coming forth and making those statements to the mainstream media.
Please leave a message. You can also email prg@paradigmresearchgroup.org.
Well, that's sounding better. It sounds like you're getting a better
At the tone,
connection.
please
So
record your
good.
message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press
Live-
1 for more options.
Live podcasting. Well, you've got 15 hours or 20 hours of this sort of thing coming up next week then, Michael, I think.
Yeah, that's right. This is a good practice for me, that's for sure. So, but I am wondering whether Dr. Kaku is using this bold statement that he has just made for a trial balloon to see how the reaction to the American public will be, because it is groundbreaking what he's done, and no one has done it before him in his scientific field. So I'm wondering whether when Steve Bassett is mentioning this is just the beginning of these kinds of announcements, so that the scientists aren't caught with their pants down when the actual disclosure happens. I'm wondering if this is the trial balloon to see how things go along with the public. And I'm assuming it's going to go very well, and they're going to realize that, hey, the people can handle this. So they are probably going to be a little surprised about how the fallout from this statement will be mostly positive, I believe, let alone the fact that it's just on the cusp of the major UFO event that went viral on Facebook and the internet about Area 51. I mean, the timing could not have been better for the whole idea that young people on the planet and baby boomers and everyone else are kind of interested in this subject and have shown that in their voting power when it comes to how many people are interested in this storming Area 51 event, although everyone should be discouraged to actually going to and storming Area 51, but there are some very peaceful and wonderful informative events happening in Rachel and Hico, Nevada as well. So if you're planning on going there, I can give you a little bit of hint on how to prepare for this desert community that you're going to run into. Well, it's not even, let's not call it a community, because there's only about 54 or 100 or so people that live in that neck of the woods. You've got to be prepared for your own food, your own water, and transportation and gas, because that's an important issue. If indeed anyone is attempting to do that, there are no gas stations at your destination at Rachel, Nevada. So if you don't fill up probably 200 miles prior to that, you're going to be in trouble.
Got it. Yeah, we will get to all that after we wrap up with Dr. Kaku's statement. Steve, are you back with us? And can you hear us loud and
You
clear?
have reached the maximum time permitted for recording your message. If you're satisfied with the message, press 1. To listen to your message, press 2. To erase and re-record,
he's got all that
3.
on his answering machine. Michael.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that it's coming across very clear. So it sounds like maybe the bandwidth is reduced at this point, and you might be able to get them back. But
yeah, let's give this
I'm
one
sure
more
we will
shot.
at one point.
Yeah, let's get them back here. Hang on a sec. Hang on a sec. Let me do this. Hang on a sec. This is why you always do a live show with a co-host.
Yeah, that.
Okay.
You've reached Paradigm Research Group.
Now
Please
he's not on at all. Oh well.
The technical aspects at the same time of keeping the show going. So.
Yep, most definitely. Okay, so we've got a number of quotes from different people that we want to go through about this statement. Deep Prasad gave us this feedback. Dr. Michio Kaku has opened the door even wider for the mainstream scientific community to look at UFOs seriously. He demonstrates the mark of a visionary scientist by simply being honest and rational about current events, no matter the implications to one's worldview. I am hoping more scientists put pressure on the government to explain what exactly is going on regarding extremely advanced UFOs operating in our airspace without permission. Dr. Irina Scott. The problem with UFOs from the beginning has been the lack of repeatable, controlled data that can be used in scientific methodology. Today, the UFO subject is gaining in respectability because the data can be collected in the methodological manner needed for scientific studies. As Dr. Michio Kaku explained, the burden of proof has made major shifts. For one thing, we now have reliable videotapes that could be taken by pilots under testable and provable conditions. This proof exists for the previous descriptions of impossible activities. These give real-time information about their speed, altitude, ability to make 90-degree turns, and similar characteristics, and show the reality of observations that previously were considered only anecdotal. And finally, Professor Kevin Knuth, from SUNY Albany. I appreciate that he recognizes that we are now in possession of useful data on UFOs, UAPs, and when he mentioned that we can now estimate altitudes and speeds, I thought he might be interested to know about my paper, Estimating Flight Characteristics of Anomalous Unidentified Aerial Vehicles, which is currently in revision after having gone through one round of peer review with two very supportive peer reviews. So there's Professor Knuth going ahead and putting together a peer review paper on this material. And finally, let me get through the last of our comments that Chant was able to gather throughout the week. While he points the finger towards the government or military for proofs, he could at least contribute as well. I get tired of scientists who fail to study this themselves and pass the buck to others. SCU studies this and is not connected to the government or military. In short, get off your butt, Kaku. And that's from Rich Hoffman. Way to go, Rich. I like that quote. I appreciate Rich's feedback there. A little bit interesting. Okay. Our phone app. Hang on a sec. We're blocking the strict number. Okay, so let's try to add this again. 202. Finally get Steve. It'll be worth the wait.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
Okay. Let's try this.
Okay.
Steve, you're there. All right,
Yeah.
so let's see. What did I do? You know what I did? I called you separately. Let me wrap out of this. For whatever reason, Let's see.
Scientist at his level, he has to be very careful. But the fact that he has now become emboldened to be able to make the statements that he is making regarding the reality of UFOs and the fact that they are extraterrestrial goes to show you the paradigm shift seems to be creeping into the mainstream science even at a level that is astonishing. So that's very encouraging, I think, for any ufologist or researcher out there that has been into this field for decades, kind of working against a brick wall. It seems the brick wall now is crumbling a bit, and there are openings that are coming available to all of us if indeed Michio Kaku is leading the charge now to ask the government to step up.
Not be a problem.
Okay, Steve, you there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay. Yeah. What's happened was, for whatever reason, I can't log you into the group call. So what I will do is I will disconnect from Michael. You stay on the line, and I will add Michael to this call. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry about all this. Okay, hang on a second.
Yeah, technology. We're using advanced technology. We take it for granted, but it's not simple.
Okay, Michael, I've got Steve on the other line, so let me, for whatever reason, I'm not able to patch you two together, so let me disconnect this call, and I will call you back in the group call with Michael. I'm awful sorry about this. Okay?
Okay, whatever you got to do, whatever you got to do.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so let me end this call here. Yeah, go ahead and hang up, Michael, okay? Sounds like you did. Okay, now let's add Michael. Sorry about all this, folks. Let's do it this way. Okay, you're still hanging in there, right, Steve?
I certainly am, and we've got a great connection via the phone.
Great. Okay, fantastic. Let me do this. Okay. Okay, Mike, are you there?
Hey, I'm back, Frank.
Okay, you're back, and it seems like I'm not able to do two different numbers on this group call. It seems to me we've done this before, but it's not working properly. How are we going to continue on with this? Let me add Steve. He's at 202. Hello? Oh, jeez. All right. This is a problem. Hang on a sec here.
Hello, you reached Michael W. Hall. If you'd like to leave a message, just wait for the beep.
It's not going to work.
At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Let's do this a different way, shall we? Hang on a sec.
you are satisfied with your message, press 1. To listen to your message, press 2. To erase and re-record, press 3. To continue recording where you left off, press 4. Are you still there? If you are satisfied with your message, press 1. To listen to your message, press 2. To erase and re-record, press 3. To continue recording where you left off, press 4. Are you still there? If you are satisfied with your message, press 1. To listen to your message, press 2. To erase and re-record, press 3. To continue recording where you left off, press 4. Sorry you're having trouble. Your message has been sent. Goodbye.
Okay. Let's see here.
There we go.
Michael, are you back?
Okay, I'm back, Frank. Hang again. Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, now let me go to Stephen. Let's hope we've got Stephen on. Calling him now.
All right.
Okay, 2 of 3 on the call. He's not picking up. And there he is. Stephen, are you there?
I'm picking up.
Okay.
Here I am. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. A lot of technical difficulties with the phone connections today. Sorry about all that. So let's see, where were we? Actually, Stephen, you had talked, because you kind of dropped off early in the show. You had talked one of the more recent times you were on about putting together a petition for scientists to sign off on regarding UFOs. And does this...
kind of move past that. It's been quite a while since I was involved in any petition. Let me put it this way. And I've said this many times before, and I'll say it again. As we approach the last months of the truth embargo, the 70-year thing that's been going on, there are going to be so many people coming forward, so many new statements from people that will surprise us, documents being released, news stories, that it'll be like counting boulders in an avalanche. So just expect that.
Okay.
Because disclosure is a door to another world, a new world, a post-disclosure world. And there's an awful lot of people that know about this, that understand this, that have known about it, and have stayed laid back. And there's many that have engaged it. And as that door starts to open in the last months of the truth embargo, everybody's going to try to go through that door at the same time. It's going to get a little crowded, but nevertheless, that's what's going to happen. Michio is just one example. There are others. For instance, right now, and for the last year, meetings have been taking place on Capitol Hill between members of Congress, House and Senate, and members of the To the Stars Academy, plus some of the pilot witnesses. These have been sort of acknowledged. There have been some statements that kind of indicate that's what's going on, mostly from Tom DeLonge, but the who and the what has not been discussed. However, not surprisingly, in some cases, it's gotten out that a member has been briefed. Now, the 4 that I know of for sure are Senator Mark Warner, who's a big shot.
He's making a stink about what he's getting, too.
Yeah. And then you've got Jean Shaheen. She's indicated she was briefed. You've got Amy Barra. And then you've got Mark Walker. Now, all 4 of these are Democrats, interestingly enough. Now, Mark Walker was impressed enough by his meeting with the pilots, and whoever else was there, could have been Elizondo, DeLonge, I don't know. But he met with the pilots for sure, I'm pretty sure. That he sent a letter to the Pentagon. In other words, he did what Stephen Schiff did many, many years ago. We're talking 1994. He sent a letter to the Pentagon saying, why aren't you responding to this more? Why isn't there more coming from you? And then he reiterated that in an interview that he gave just recently. That's non-trivial. And how many other members have been talked to, we don't know. I also have been informed that the pilots did, in fact, brief the president, which is very notable.
Very
and
notable.
Accounts for the fact that the president made some statements referring to the pilots because he was tossed a couple of questions on the ET issue, most of which he deflected. But in one case, he mentioned the pilots, which seems to confirm to me that this briefing took place. Now, where that's going to go, I have no idea. But let me assure you that we are in a very different place now. And this is going to heat up very quickly. And that's why I relocated back to this happened, but I'm back in D.C. right now. I've got a small place in Alexandria. And I'm about to move into the National Press Building on 14th Street in Washington, which is a very well-known building that's 2 blocks from the White House and is the home of the National Press Club, of which I am a member. I'm going to be moving into the 9th floor, and I'm creating not a office with a studio, but I'm creating a studio with an office where very soon I will start broadcasting, along with a co-host, the first exopolitical podcast ever broadcast out of Washington, and not just out of the Washington area, out of the National Press Building, 2 blocks from the White House.
Beautiful.
And because I'm a member of the press club, and simply because of the location of itself, I am aiming to bring on guests of politicians, journalists, scientists, government top people, as many people as I can bring on that are relevant, that in very many cases have never spoken to this issue publicly before. We're going mainstream here because it's time to go mainstream, by and large. There's still a huge political chaos underway. Extraordinary, unprecedented, consuming. I don't know how it's going to resolve, but that is certainly making it difficult to move certain issues forward and interact with the media, which are pretty much consumed by the current chaos. But nevertheless, we can make progress. And so that's where I'm going to be coming from. I'll make a formal announcement this very soon. It will have a website. It will also have a YouTube channel. And we're going to start doing these podcasts. And we're going to do what we can to influence. In addition, I'm going to be lobbying on the Hill again, much more aggressively than before, because the Two Stars Academy have pretty much they have pretty much opened a lot of doors here. They've legitimized the issue to another level, which I didn't have the luxury of when I was lobbying the last time around 3.5 years ago. And my partner in the podcast will also be lobbying because she has registered as a lobbyist as well. And as it happens, it's just a matter of timing, she is the second person to register at the federal level as a lobbyist on this issue and the first woman.
Are you talking about
and
Chase here?
We will be working together.
Steve.
I'm talking about what?
Are you talking about Chase Klutsky here or somebody else?
Yes.
Chase? Okay.
No, actually, no. I'm referring to, actually, I'm talking, I better clarify. I'm talking about Teresa Tyndall. Teresa Tyndall is going to be my co-host.
Okay. Right. Good. Fantastic.
Chase was going to register as a lobbyist, and she may very well do so at any time, federal lobbyist. And when she does, she'll be the third, and that's fine. The more, the better. I want as many lobbyists on the Hill pushing Congress on this issue as possible.
Right,
but
exactly.
You're on a lot because the pay is really not very good.
Well, let me ask you this about the Kaku statement. Most everybody in the UFO community got kind of jumped all over it, thinks it's a big deal. We're building an entire show around it. But it really is not getting out to the mainstream. I've seen a couple Spanish language stories about it. There was one Yahoo story that sort of buried the headline about the meat of what Kaku actually said. This is not really going anywhere just yet.
Well, that's understandable. Because one of the statements was made in Barcelona, Spain, and the other was made on a Mexican radio show.
Right.
But note that Michio Kaku agreed to go to a conference called the World Ufology Conference. Remember, I'm not a fan of UFO and ufology. I don't like those terms. They have too much baggage. They're the terms of the embargo. But he went. That's a long ways. And then he made those statements. It's my job. I'm not the only one that could say that, but it's my job to make sure that that statement gets into the mainstream press. And I assure you, as soon as I get set up in my office, which could be within a couple of days, I'm going to go to work on that right away.
Excellent. And Michael Hall, you are involved in a lengthy podcast next weekend regarding this Area 51 event, which is kind of got started and has actually gotten a lot more attention in the mainstream media than the Kaku statement up to this point. It's been going for a little while, but you're going to be doing something next weekend. Why don't you tell the folks all about it and give us a little background on this Area 51 event started by Matty. I believe his last name is Rogers, if I recall, Roberts, if I recall off the top of my head. But tell the folks a little bit about what you've got going next weekend.
Well, thank you, Frank. And by the way, Stephen, I tell you, this is so wonderful news to be able to hear that you're going back to D.C. and that your office now is going to be right there in the National Press Club. One of the things that we want to do with a 15-hour podcast marathon on Saturday, September 21st from 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is basically highlight groups like yourselves, Stephen. The Paradigm Research Group doesn't operate in a vacuum and needs to have some funds. Let's put it that way. So we are going to pick your group and others, Peter Davenport's National UFO Reporting Center. We're going to ask people to actually support your groups and agencies by sending you some money directly, checks to whatever address you want them to have. We're going to be kind of doing the old Jerry Lewis telethon for 15 hours.
Michael, not to interrupt, but are you going to sing "You'll Never Walk Alone" at the end of the podcast?
Yeah, we got to have some kind of a theme. Yeah, there you go. I love it.
It's a great theme. Think about it.
Oh, you got it. The words.
Because what we're about to learn is we're not alone in the universe. Isn't that fundamentally what we're going to have to learn? We're not alone in the universe, and we don't have to walk alone in this galaxy. I love this. Find somebody who can sing it.
Oh yeah. Oh, fantastic. And we have never been alone, as far as I'm concerned as well. So, what we're going to do, Frank and Steve, we're actually going, myself and the UFOI team are going to Vegas. Actually, I'm flying out on Tuesday, the 17th, but being there throughout the entire weekend of the 20th through the 22nd, and doing this podcast, taking advantage, of course, of all the interest about the Area 51 events. But we're out there going to raise whatever public opinion we can for the serious research and idea of ET and UFO presence on the planet. And at the same time, we're going to highlight groups like the Paradigm Research Group and others so that the public can know all the decades of research that you've put into this and support you in some way. So that's what we're attempting to do. On Facebook, by the way, you can go to the new Facebook page that we've got up there called Disclosure Aid. Kind of like the old Band-Aid, concerts that they had with Sting and Bono and all those guys. We figure, why not have a Disclosure Aid event where people will tune in, anytime they can on Facebook and join in.
That's a brilliant idea. And, there's been a lot of criticism of the initial idea from this fellow Matty, and he's shifted around. He's looking to do something now in Vegas itself where they've got a little bit more in the way of facilities and infrastructure to handle a larger event. But I'm glad that you're doing something like this. This seems like a positive type of thing, not suggesting any kind of civil disobedience like storming the actual base itself and so on and so forth, which seemed to me to be a silly idea. Steve, let me ask you this. At any point in your activism regarding this, have you ever suggested or thought it might be a good idea to engage in some sort of civil disobedience to try to get this out there, or are you just avoiding that type of technique?
To answer your question, no, I have not. Though I have talked about the fact that civil disobedience is a legitimate tool of the activist feature of the ET issue. Did not lend itself to civil disobedience, let alone violence. And there's never been any violence on the part of this movement, as far as I know, going back 70 years. I've never had a single incident brought to my attention. So I don't think that's the way to go. And of course, I didn't think Maddie's idea was a good idea, and quickly contacted him and said, "Don't do that." Right? Yeah. Let's turn that around as quickly as possible. However, he did do something positive in that, and I give him credit for this. I think it was an accident. I don't think he expected it. He did something I couldn't do. There's no way that I could put up a Storm Area 51 thing in order to test the waters. But he didn't care. He doesn't have those constraints. So he puts this up there, and 4 million people respond. Now, that's a lot of people. As memes go, that's a lot of people. Whether they mean to go there or not, most of them didn't. And so what he did is he just sent a message to the media, the mainstream media as it is, look at the level of interest in this subject and getting it resolved, because storming Area 51 at its base is about resolving the issue, meaning we're going to storm it, we're going to go into those underground facilities, we're going to find those ARV vehicles, alien reproduction vehicles, or whatever the hell else is there, and we're going to end this truth embargo. That's 4 million people. That was like a referendum. And so that was very important, and I will be able to use that in my advocacy work. It's morphed into a festival in order to get away from the serious implications of civil disobedience on that particular facility. I think day before yesterday, 2 young gentlemen, I think from Norway or something, actually did make a move on the place, and they did get arrested pretty quickly, but that was a couple of days ago. And it's not clear for certain there will not be a problem in the coming days, 2021. I hope not. It won't help the disclosure movement if there is, I can assure you. But now I want to get back to Michael's project. Look, you were going to be the first telethon or podathon on this subject ever. So you're breaking new ground, bold to say the least. And on my website, paradigmresearchgroup.org, there's a contribute link. It's very easy to find. It's in several places at the top. And on that contribute link, Michael, you can find everything you want to know about the options about how funds can be provided. I don't need to tell you. It's right there to PRG. So these are, again, milestone things. I mean, this is, this issue has been around since 1947, and no one has ever suggested storming Area 51 until a couple of months ago, right? and no one has held a telethon or a podathon. There are things and of course, what To the Stars Academy did, releasing 3 clips of first gun camera footage ever authorized by any government ever to be released to the public. And not just any clips that highlighted 2 major events, the Nimitz carrier event and the Franklin D. Roosevelt carrier event, putting the Navy on the spot, and then revealing programs that had gone on and people involved and everything else. This is unprecedented. This is not 1970, 80, 90, 2000. We're past that. And you take all of these unprecedented activities and you package them up and look at it from a distance, and what you see is the beginning of the end of the truth embargo. How long it will hang on, I do not know, but its days are certainly numbered at this point.
And Michael, you had mentioned earlier in the show that this is Rachel, Nevada is not the easiest place to get to, that facilities are somewhat limited. You said you had some advice for the folks who might be thinking about taking a spin out there and joining you live. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your recommendations for anyone who's looking to visit directly?
Oh, sure, Frank. And Stephen, thank you very much for those kind words about the the milestone events that we're trying to affect here, because you are the godfather of milestone events yourself with the Paradigm Research Group, and there's just no reason why people should not support you 100%, and that's what we're attempting to do here. But if people would really like to get into the details of physically going to Area 51, Rachel or Heiko, Nevada, they can go to the UFO I-Team Facebook page, and we've got a video up there of our trip that we made 2 weeks ago out there in 105-degree heat, by the way. So you have to be prepared for weather that is totally different than what you might be used to. But in reality, you're going to end up taking Highway 93 north of Las Vegas, literally for 2.5, maybe almost 3 hours. And that's in good driving conditions. So if you're talking maybe a couple thousand people or more on the highway, which is a 2-lane highway, it's going to be a lot harder to get to. But the trick is, once you get out of Vegas, if you don't fill up or top off your gas tank on whatever vehicle you're driving, it is going to be at least another 200 miles to get to your destination at Heiko, Nevada, at the intersection of Highway 93 and Highway 375, the extraterrestrial highway. You're going to run into Heiko first, and then you're going to take a left and go 40 more miles to get to Rachel, Nevada. And when you get there, there is no gas station. There is no facility to be able to provide you with fuel to get back. So if you don't fill up right away, you're in big trouble right off the bat. You have to bring in and be prepared to handle your own water and food, your own resources on, how you're going to survive for 2 days, overnight at the very least. And the folks out there at Heiko, there's a really wonderful woman by the name of Linda Looney, that's her real name, who runs the Alien Research Center for George Harris in the very first location that you'll run across. They are planning a major UFO conference and concert put on by Jeremy Corbell is one of the organizers out there. And then as you go left on the extraterrestrial highway, halfway between Rachel and Heiko, you will find that black mailbox on the left-hand side of the highway, which is 14 miles. That's the cutoff that you would take to actually go to Area 51. And I would imagine they're going to stop people right there. So I don't think you're going to get past the black mailbox at that point. But at Rachel, Nevada, Connie West, the owner, and her family has the Little Ailey Inn bar and motel there, where only 54 people reside there year-round. She is bracing for Armageddon. Let's put it that way. I've been in communications with Connie for almost 2 months now, and we'll be going back there on the 17th to pitch in any way I can before the podcast on Saturday, the 21st. But they are doing yeoman's duty on an event that they had no planning in, and they were just being thrust upon them. So you have to be totally prepared to survive on your own. And I wouldn't put any credence in the fact that you're going to get there and buy all the food you need and all the water you need. You would want to bring it all as you go. And the last thing I would admonish people is that leave no trace. If you're going there and you're going to be there for a while, you take everything with you, so they don't have a big mess to clear up when you get out of there.
Sounds like fun.
I need to add to that, Frank. Let me add to that. There's I think more to be said here. What Michael said is great, but I think there's more. I need to add more to this. Let's understand what happened here. Matty Roberts had a cool idea, put up a theme, generated something bigger than he ever imagined, that gave the impression that a lot of people might storm Area 51, which would have been a bad deal. A lot of pushback came against that, appropriately, a lot of negative criticism and so forth. And so, smartly, though I would have changed the wording on the main site, the main Facebook page on this, but never did that, which is, I think, a mistake. In any event, they, in order to get out from under the problem, they segued into festival mode. And two festivals were, I think, where there was an attempt to get 2 festivals together. It might even be 3. Now, I understand.
3, actually.
This is, people are thinking, oh, well, they're having a festival. Wait a minute. I assure you, if it wasn't for the Area 51 storming thing, nobody is going to put a festival out there. This is not a place for a festival. This isn't Woodstock. All right. I assure you, it's anything but Woodstock. So normally you would never have a festival like this out there. But because of the problem with the whole 4 million people signing up for Storm, they needed a segue. Okay, so they did. But this is not conducive for that. So, for one thing, and the other thing is, it's like Woodstock in one sense. There was X number of thousand people they were expected, and 5 times that showed up. So there's a big difference between 1,000 people showing up out there, 5,000 people showing up there, 15,000 people. Each 1,000 you add, the problem's going to get worse and worse. So if you want to be smart about this, you do not go out there unless you're in an RV. It doesn't have to be huge, but an RV that's got a toilet, you can put lots of water in and food, extra gas, and you're probably going to be just fine. But if you're not in an RV, you can expect to have some problems. One of the festivals was canceled. They couldn't get approval. They were able to get approval from another county, and they went ahead with it. They may regret that, but whatever. At least 2 of the counties had to go into emergency mode, meaning they're anticipating problems of a degree that they had to go on emergency status, which means that people are going to be brought in. There's going to be people doing overtime, and there's a lot of money is going to be spent. And I don't want to sound like a totally negative guy, but I am not going to be surprised if somebody or somebodies don't get hit with a bill from these counties for the security and all the other time they have had to put in to service this issue.
Well, yeah,
and it could be a very big bill.
They're going to have to bring in porta potties. Right. They got to be concerned about that. Food, water for people.
The festival is supposed to put in porta potties. The festival is supposed to bring that in, and if they don't bring enough, that's going to be a problem. Yeah. And maybe the Area 51 festival, which seems to be the last festival standing, is going to get all that done. Except they don't know how many people are going to come. This is not an RSVP. And so if the number of people that come is 10 times more than the porta potties can handle, you see the problem here.
Sure.
And so this is a tricky situation. And then there is also the possibility that some of these people are going to say, I didn't come all this way just to listen to some music. I'm heading out to Area 51. And at that point, anything can happen. Now, if I were in charge of all this, and I assure you I'm not, and I am not going to be, and I don't want to be, but I would, for those that want to be activists, there's an option that they could do, which would be kind of cool. And that is this. You get 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, I don't know how many people in their vehicles. And what they do is they head north. I think it could be either way. I think it should be on the, let me get my orientation here. It would be like the western side. There was head north of the mailbox and then drive south and then pull over to the side of the road. No, you're not on the road. You're just off the side of the road because there's a lot of side of the road out there in that neck of the woods. And so what you end up with is a huge long line of cars on the side of the road, the side that Area 51 is on eventually, out in the distance, huge long line. And then people get out of their car and they get up and maybe sit on the hood and just look in the direction of Area 51, making a statement. Now you film this, of course, and you take some great photos of it. It will be a rather remarkable scene that will those images will get played all over the world. It's a silent, non-violent, non-incursive protest. It will not interrupt the traffic, assuming people are polite, on that road. And for a certain amount of time, maybe a half hour, people just sit there and stare out at that expanse where Area 51 and a lot of other things exist, making a statement We want to know what's going on here. We've been patient a long time, but the circumstances are increasingly such that this secrecy, this embargo, is no longer in America's interest, and we want it to end. That's the kind of thing that I would suggest. Beyond that, I really can't think of anything. And for a lot of people, if they were to ask me, Steve, in terms of just going, not going, what do you suggest? I would say fundamentally, don't go, but participate in the podathon that's going to be in Vegas. Watch it, listen to it, whatever, contribute on the day after, right? And that's another way to support this issue substantially, and also make a statement, because the more people involved, when they can make a statement to the government, hey, we're serious about this. That would be my advice. I just, under the circumstances, I could never advise anybody to go to this festival knowing what I know. I'm not saying it could go off perfectly, but the nature of how it was started, how it was set up, and what's going on out there, and where it is, I don't know what the temperature is going to be, but I don't think it's going to be cool. There is a lot of potential for unpleasantness. And I'm selfish in that regard, because as an activist here, any unpleasantness that happens out there, I'm going to have to deal with it. Sure. I'm going to have people questioning, who are these people that believe there's ETs? Well, they're crazy. They go out in the desert. They got hurt. They did stupid stuff. And I'm in this issue. So I'm being selfish. I'm saying we don't need that. We're making a lot of progress here on this issue. We do not need a fiasco in the desert. But I hope that not that happens, and I hope that those that go have a good time. But boy, they need to give a lot of thought into this. This isn't Burning Man. A lot of people thinking, that some people. One person called it the alien Burning Man. I'm saying I've been to Burning Man. Burning Man cost, I don't know, $8 or $9 million to put together. It has hundreds of volunteers. They spend months getting it all set up. This is anything but Burning Man. And so I just hope people just keep their head on straight and do the smart thing.
And you're looking to do the smart thing when you go there, Michael. When can we expect you to get there and your setup, and then you're going to do the podcast marathon on Saturday? So fill us in a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I sure will. And by the way, just to dovetail on what Stephen was mentioning about actually being there, if for instance, you actually got to the extraterrestrial highway, halfway between Heiko and Rachel is the black mailbox. That's where you turn off to make a southward turn to get to the north part of Area 51. From the mailbox or the highway to the gate, the first gate that you would run across is 14 miles away, by the way, all filled with sensors and, gear that they know you're coming. If you ever got to the gate, at that point, there is a 30-mile expanse of desert before you actually get to the very formidable mountains, by the way, that basically border Area 51 from the rest of the valley there. If you get over the mountains, you've got another 10 miles to hike to actually get to the base itself. And if the weather is hovering anywhere around 100 degrees, there's just no way, first of all, you're going to do it in a vehicle. The second problem is actually walking that distance in the heat, and it's impossible. So I think, the whole idea of the podcast marathon is what we hope is a safer and sane alternative for people literally around the world who don't have an opportunity, obviously, to show up in a small community like Rachel, Nevada. So I will be flying out again on Tuesday the 17th to the base that we're setting up there in northwest Las Vegas at a house there that a friend of mine from college lives in. And then we are going to make periodic forays into Rachel to talk with Connie West again. She's the one that we've been working with and trying to help, her in any way we can with moral support and any kind of advice that we can give her, and the whole idea of getting announcements out to the press and the Facebook community and on the internet. So on Saturday after the event. By the way, the funny thing with Matty Roberts' announcement that he inadvertently picked a time of 3 a.m. on Friday, the 20th. I don't know
that
where
was also a mistake. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's no way anyone is, as far as I can see, would be doing it then, because literally they'd have to show up by Wednesday to get out there and get ready for a early, let's say, Friday morning at almost like Thursday in the middle of the night run to the gate. So I'm assuming that by Saturday things will have settled down a bit. And hopefully things have taken their course and been peaceful at that point. And that's when we are at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time going to start the podcast with basically kind of bringing in some really good paranormal podcasters from around the world to kind of like tag team the event. I will be kind of, doing the MC work throughout the 15 hours till 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But we are going to have interviews. We're going to have musicians, music on the air, and we're going to bring about whatever awareness we can for UFO and ET disclosure, and just kind of make it an event that will be fun and informative, I believe.
Sounds awesome. I cannot wait to listen. And let's. We covered all the ground that we had on the agenda today. Steve or Michael, do either of you have anything else that you want to jump in with before we wrap up here?
Boy, that's a good question. Well, I'll mention this. I have a good friend and colleague, supporter, UFO Jim Ledwith out of Sonoma. And years ago, he and his wife drove out to Area 51. And this is years ago, they cruised on down and they got to the gate. And they ended up getting, how would you say, pulled over and then brought into the facility there and interrogated for 2 hours. and Jim is a very likable guy. I mean, he's just a really cool, likable guy. And he was also former Air Force. And so he ultimately just sort of put them at ease and what have you. And they were able to leave. But I still think the reason they kept them there for 2 hours was not because they really thought there was a threat, but just to teach a lesson.
Sure. Right? Oh yeah.
Don't do that. Right. Yeah. Don't do that. So that's just that. And it's a great story now. But they did it at night. And again, that's the other thing. Matty he wasn't serious about this. It was a joke.
Right.
So he didn't care. He just put it at 3 a.m. And I'm going, the worst thing you could possibly do is a whole bunch of people show up at 3 a.m. in the morning. And you know how dark it is there at night, unless there's a moon, without a flashlight. Oh, yeah. You couldn't even see your fingers in front of your face. And so they're out in the dark. The guys that are securing the base have no idea what the hell's going, what they could do. Some of them could be cruising out on foot and trying to get in on the other side, and that starts to get them paranoid and concerned. And some of them could easily lose their job if people get through there and they don't get it. And so now you see the potential for things going bad gets worse and worse. So I hope to God nobody actually goes out at 3 a.m. to make the Naruto run on the fence. They'll never make it to the actual base. They'll die in the desert before they get there, but they will make it to the gate and maybe up the road a ways. I just hope to God nobody does that. But I'll say this: if the last thing I'll say is this: if Matty Roberts, in his wisdom, had somehow come up with a way to put this up and have it that you in order to sign up to go there and be part of it, you had to give an email address. He would have collected perhaps 4 million email addresses, and Matty Roberts would have instantly become a major force in the disclosure activist movement.
There you go.
And that email list would be worth a fortune. But he wasn't thinking that way. He was just having some fun.
Right, right. And apparently he got visited too by the FBI at his home. Apparently, he reported that he did.
Sure,
so
of course.
they take this very seriously.
He got their attention.
Yeah, yeah. Don't screw around, folks. You know, if you do make it out there or to any of the other disclosure events. And Steve Bassett, this would not be a bad idea to have an event like this in Washington, D.C., too. You know, there's always that. You can do the same type of thing there.
An event.
Yeah, an event exactly.
Like what?
An event like this where you have some bands there and you have some UFO people there and you put together a disclosure-like festival, you know, that kind of thing.
In the past, I have had several, 2 or 3 discussions with people, appropriate people, about a Truth Aid conference, right? In other words, Truth Aid. And because there are so many bands, so many musicians out there that have already publicly come out and said that they believe that they've had a major sighting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so forth. And I'm thinking, boy, get those acts to come in and do a Truth Aid conference. Well, and you could branch it out, because if it's Truth Aid, you could possibly cover a few more areas where the truth is being withheld.
I'll drop some names here. I'll drop some names here, some guys who are still active. John Anderson from Yes. He's a longtime contactee. Sammy Hagar wrote about it in his autobiography. He's a contactee. Alice Cooper had a sighting out in Arizona. So these aren't small names. These aren't obscure groups or performers looking to, go for a ride on something and get some attention for themselves. There are some big names out there who've had very close encounters with ET. By their own admission, publicly. Moody Blues, absolutely. A whole lot. A lot of them aren't with us anymore, but a lot of them still are. You know.
But what I learned is that is a major undertaking. That is a major undertaking.
Sure, it is.
There needs to be a lot of advanced money, a lot of work. And it was a project way beyond my efforts. I mean, Robert Bletchman was really serious about doing this, but unfortunately he passed away. So it's been out there as a possibility. But again, when you're talking farm aid, you're talking basic stuff. Everybody's on board. The moment you get to ET area, truth embargo, a lot of uncertainties. And so it just didn't happen. But one day, I will predict, I think this is a certainty, that if we have disclosure and we get the formal acknowledgement from all the heads of state around the world, and it's pretty much the post-disclosure world, there's still, that's just a simple acknowledgement the ETs are here. That is not the truth of the matter. That's not the full truth of the history of this thing, which is vast. And there's going to be some back and forth about what we should be told right away. I could see a Truth Aid concert, a major one, post-disclosure, absolutely huge, could be global with multiple events, where the people use that venue, which is a powerful venue, to express to the government, fine, now that you've admitted the ETs are here, we want to know the story. We want to know everything possible short of really, truly dangerous national security revelations. We do not want you to play any more games with this. And I would be happy to sign on to that project.
Sure, you bet.
If it's, you'll see that. You will see it.
If it's close to home, I would go to something like that in a heartbeat. Michael, you have anything for us in summation?
Well, Stephen, I would definitely volunteer my time to help in any way I could for something like Truth Aid. That would be awesome. I mean, I think you're right. Once, if Michio Kaku is coming on board, if, mainstream science now is taking, a serious look at this, this is probably something we need to look at as a follow-up to this disclosure aid that we're going to pull off here on Saturday. And by the way, I just want to, again, reiterate that people that want to support this kind of ET and UFO disclosure need to go to organizations like the Paradigm Research Group, the National UFO Reporting Center. Just go to their websites and find out where you can send a check. $5, $10.
And MUFON. Don't forget MUFON.
MUFON, of course.
Join some of them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Exactly. Get involved, because this is probably one of the most exciting times that anyone will be able to look back on their lives, say that they were involved. So that's only my wish that we all keep this peaceful and we organize for disclosure.
And Michael, you had mentioned a disclosure aid page on Facebook, and also which YouTube channel are you going to be streaming all this on?
Well, we'll be on UFO I-Team on YouTube as well, and UFO I-Team on Facebook, and Disclosure Aid on Facebook.
Okay. Do you have the links to that? Because I can't immediately find... I know where your UFO I-Team is, but I'm looking for the Disclosure Aid page on Facebook. So can you pass that link along to me, and I will post that in the description?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I can do that. That's not a problem. I just need to have, because I can't find it. I see a few different ones, but if you can get me that'd be great. I'll stick that in the description for the video. So again, Michael W. Hall and Steve Bassett, thanks so much for a great show. Had a lot of fun today. It looks like we're dealing with some news, and we've got some new good stuff on the horizon. So we are definitely going to continue to stay on top of all this. And again, both of you, thanks so much for joining us today. And we will follow up and let you know what happens. So thanks again, both of you, gentlemen.
Great.
Thanks so much.
Frank. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Have a great day, and goodbye, everybody. We'll be back during the week with Marion Rudnick, a scientist who talks rather openly about UFOs, worked for NASA, and we will be talking to him this week, so we will see you then. And have some follow-up on this disclosure event coming up out in Nevada near Area 51 next weekend. So have a great week, everybody. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye now.